Hey there, I'm Rachel, and I'm so glad you've joined me today. Can I just say, if you have landed on this episode because grief is close to your heart right now, you are exactly where you need to be. Today, we're going to talk about something I don't think gets said enough in Christian circles. What do you do when grief has made you angry at God? When loss has made it hard to even want to pray, let alone believe that God is listening? And I want to say this before we go one step further. Whatever you're feeling toward God right now, He can handle it. He is not fragile. He is not keeping score. He loves you and He is not going anywhere. Real quick before we dive in, I wanted to make sure you know about my book, Desperate Prayers: Embracing the Power of Prayer in Life's Darkest Moments. I did not write this book from a comfortable place. I wrote it from the trenches, from seasons of real loss and real pain, and prayers that honestly didn't always feel like they were getting through. So if you're in a hard season, this book was written with you in mind. You can find it at desperateprayers.com or wherever you buy books. And now for the first segment of the podcast, Questions in Hard Places. Today's question is, how do I pray when grief has made me angry at God? And today's question is one that I think a lot of people carry but are genuinely afraid to say out loud. How do I pray when grief has made me angry at God? And I want to start right there with the fear of even asking it, because a lot of us have been taught, either directly or indirectly, that anger at God means something is wrong with us, that it's a faith problem, that we need to get it together before we can come to God. And can I be honest with you? That's not what Scripture shows us. Anger at God and grief is not new. It's not a sign that your faith is broken or that you failed somehow. The Bible makes room for it, and I mean that very literally. Lamentations 3 tells us, I am the man who has seen affliction by the rod of the Lord's wrath. He has driven me away and made me walk in darkness rather than light. Indeed, He has turned His hand against me again and again all day long. That's Lamentations 3, 1 through 3. And then he keeps going. He has made my skin and my flesh grow old and has broken my bones. He has driven me away and made me walk in darkness. He has walled me in so I cannot escape. He has weighed me down with chains. Okay, that's not really soft, tidy Sunday morning language. This is someone who's furious and gutted and feels completely hemmed in by God. Those words are in the Bible. God put them there. And I think He included the book of Lamentations because He wanted us to know that you are supposed to bring this to me. Watch what happens, though, in this same chapter, same writer, no change in circumstances at all. And verse 22, because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for His compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Lamentations 3:22 and 23. He didn't skip the pain to get to the hope. He walked through it. He said the hard things. He brought the anger to God. And on the other side of that honesty, there was a shift, right? Lament is not a failure. It's actually a form of worship. And when you're angry at God, you're still talking to God. So if you're there today, if you're in the where were you, God place, you don't have to clean that up before you bring it to Him. You can take the anger, take the confusion, bring all of it, because grief that's going to God is still going to the right place. Thank you so much for tuning into this segment of Questions in Hard Spaces. We'll be right back after this word from our sponsors. And now, thank you for tuning in to that word from our sponsors. We have our Pray More, Worry Less encouragement segment next. And our principle is that every miracle God provides deepens our faith for the next one. This principle is something I want you to hold on to, that every miracle God does in your life truly does deepen your faith for the next one. And I want to take you to a story in 1 Kings 17 that I don't think gets enough attention, at least in this particular way, because it speaks so directly to grief. It spoke directly to my heart last week as I read it. What happens when God shows up? And the widow at Zarephath in 1 Kings 17, verses 7 to 16, she has a son and there's a famine. And she is down to her absolute last, just a little flour, a little oil. She's literally making what she believes is the final meal for herself and her child before they start the starvation period to death. And in this moment, Elijah comes in. He's the prophet of God, and he asks her for food, which, that took some nerve, right? She's down to nothing. He's asking her for food, but she says, I'll give you what I have. God provides. The flour doesn't run out, the oil doesn't run out, and day after day through this entire famine, there's miracle after miracle. She sees God's faithfulness up close. Every day she's seeing this little mini miracle from the Lord, major miracle, that it continues. Then her son gets sick and he dies. And this is what the widow says to Elijah, because I feel like this is the most human thing in this whole story. She looks at him and says, what do you have against me, man of God? And did you come to remind me of my sin and kill my son? That is grief talking. That's a mama who has just watched her child die, and she's looking for a place to put the pain. She is not being theological. She's not thinking clearly. She's devastated, and she says it out loud to the man of God standing in her house. And you know what? God doesn't strike her down for saying that, and Elijah doesn't lecture her. He doesn't walk away, but he moves into action. He prays 3 times. He takes the boy up into his room and he cries out to the Lord, stretching himself over the child, and prays, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And I love that detail so much, because I think sometimes we pray and then we don't realize that our requests matter to God. And when he kept crying out, it wasn't his activity, it was his attitude that moved the heart of God. This widow has already seen the flour and the oil miracle. She knew Elijah was from God, but when her son comes back to life, she says something she hadn't said before. And I love this part of the passage. Now I know that you are a man of God and that the word of the Lord from your mouth is true. Not, I already knew this, or no, I think. But that word no is doing a lot of work. She had a foundation of faith from the flour and oil. But the deeper loss, the death of her son, required a greater miracle. And the greater miracle produced a depth of faith in her that she could not have gotten any other way. When God brings you through something, then you have more faith for the next season. The hard year that you walked through 5 years ago was laying the foundation for your faith right now. What does God do in the season of grief? He's preparing you for something that you cannot see yet. Grief is not the end of God's work in your life. I believe it's the place where our faith goes the deepest. It's a battle we don't fight alone, though. God walks us through it. For our final segment each week, I share an answered prayer story. And for this week's answered prayer story, I wanted to share something from my own life. My daughter Taylor was born with Sanfilippo syndrome, a rare terminal neurological condition. For 22 years, she was part of our family, and it shaped all of us. She shaped all of us. She was full of life and full of joy, but she also had tremendous need. Caring for her meant learning to pray in ways I never expected. They were very desperate prayers, honest prayers, prayers that didn't always even have words. And when Taylor went to heaven on January 2nd, 2019, I was not prepared for what grief would actually feel like. I thought I had been preparing for it for years because I'd walked the road of suffering so long, and you would have thought that I had done so much grieving. But I was wrong. Grief has a way of surprising you. And there were days I didn't pray so much. I would just kind of like sigh in God's direction. There were days I was angry, days that I sat in silence and told him I didn't understand. Days that sounded a lot like Lamentations 3. He has walled me in so I cannot escape. That was real for me. But on the other side of those early days, I can tell you that God was present in every single one of them, not just the polished times. He was in those sighs. He was in the silence, and he was with me in the anger. And every season of walking with Taylor, the hard years, the desperate prayers, all those miracles built something in me that I know wouldn't have happened any other way. Taylor's life taught me to pray, and her death deepened my prayers. I think that's what the widow at Zarephath would tell you too. The flour and oil miracle was good. It was provision. But the moment her son was placed back in her arms, that's when she said, "Now I know." Not the same knowing what she had before. There was a deeper knowing because she had been in the deep with God, and he'd not let her drown. That's what grief can do when we bring it to God instead of trying to carry it alone. It can become the very place where our faith goes from knowing about God to knowing who he is. If you're walking through grief right now, whether it's raw and brand new or you've been carrying it for a while, I want to put something in your hands. My book, Desperate Prayers, Embracing the Power of Prayer in Life's Darkest Moments, was written from this kind of place, not from the mountaintop or the valley, but it's a companion for those hard days. And you'll find it at desperateprayers.com or wherever you buy books. Thanks so much for listening in today. I am thrilled to be able to share with you on the Untangling Prayer podcast, and I pray this episode has met you wherever you are in your grief journey. I want to leave you with just this one thought. Your honest prayers, even the angry ones, even the ones that are just a sigh, as I said before, they reach God. He's not waiting for you to have yourself together before he shows up. He is already with you right in the middle of whatever you're going through. So remember, God sees you and he knows your needs.